Let's talk about this after
We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. This is the March 13th meeting of the Bardstown City Council. I need to announce at the beginning of the meeting here that we'll be going into executive session pursuant to KRS 61810-1B. Deliberations on the future acquisition or sale of real property by a public agency with publicity would be likely to affect the value of the property. The first item on our agenda, we don't really see any individuals or groups that want to address the council this evening. Pat, would you like to tell us about Texas, where you've been? We missed you the last 2 months. Okay, Jessica, you've got a change order for the water treatment plant.
Yes, we've got a contract right now with CNS Quality Services. They're doing some maintenance work on the filter unit number 2 there at the water treatment plant. And in the course of their sandblasting and just doing that maintenance work, there was some additional work that needed to be done. Some deterioration of portions of the unit. After they sandblasted, there was just not any metal hardly left. And over the course of the years, we've since added ActiFlow as a pre-treatment system at the water plant, and therefore the whole center rakes and so forth that we had in these older units are really no longer necessary. When we renovated 1 and 2, units 3 and 4 back in 2010, all of that center portion was removed. So we don't need them to be upgraded to make them larger at this point, but we went ahead and just removed those and got 3 bids on what it would take to do that. The painters that were already on site, their price was the lowest, and I determined that it made sense to just add that as part of this contract, to go ahead and remove those arms and saw that equipment out. They also, in the course of, again, getting the unit drawn down and cleaning everything up, there were some tube settlers as portion of the treatment there in the center units. And once those tube settlers were removed, we could see some additional voids and pitting in the underbracing that you couldn't really see until that was all removed. So that item number 2 on the change order, that was just some additional material costs to go ahead and fill that in over and above and beyond what the contract spec really kind of called for. So it's pretty straightforward. We need to do it and keep us moving along with the project. So I would ask that the council recommend approval with a motion if someone would like to do that.
So the total change order 72,836.
Yes, I believe that's kind of a not to exceed number, or we've kind of got a dollar amount per gallon for the material, hoping that price, that they're not going to need additional material, but I think they finished that portion of the way, so this should be good.
Jessica, I don't remember ever seeing where we had a increase or a change order that said maximum. So that means that's what we can expect. It won't be a penny more than that, right?
Right, it shouldn't be any more than that. I mean, they were trying to estimate how, and again, they're trying to predict and estimate just by looking at the number of cracks and the amount of pails or gallons of the material epoxy patch that they're going to need to fill that in. So they kind of gave us a number. At first they just gave us a price per gallon, and that was going to be an applicated cost per gallon. And I asked them to, come on, can you give me a better estimate on how much you think it's going to take? So that's what I'm looking at here.
The original overall project, what was that total?
The original contract price was $61,086. And again, the $8,900 was, again, a portion that was not even part of the project to begin with, but something that definitely came about.
So the 11,750 is the change order?
Yes, okay. Yes. And there's also a request for extension of 30 days to the timetable. Originally we had, I believe, 45 days to get the project done, but if you remember, this project notice to proceed was issued near the beginning of January, and in that time, we have had sub-freezing temperatures, I think, for 3 weeks in a row. Then we went to solid, it did nothing but seem like rain for 3 weeks. So they've really been battling the elements trying to get this work done. So I felt it was reasonable to grant them that extension due to weather.
Okay. Any other questions of Jessica? So this would really be a change order not to exceed then this 11.
For that, yes, for that particular item.
Right.
I'm hoping there's no other items that
Right.
come up.
But for this particular work.
Correct.
Okay,
It's
then.
just not to exceed price just for the material, though, right? Not for the labor or whatever that would be involved in. Is that
That's a per gallon
Yeah.
applicated price. So that $475 per gallon, it should includes labor.
Okay. Any other questions of Jessica? If not, then I'd ask for a motion then to approve the change order for the water treatment plant, filter unit 2 for $11,750.
So moved, Mayor.
A motion by Councilman Williams, do I have a second?
Second?
Second by Councilman Knowles, any other discussion?
Question, that fits within our budget, correct?
Yes, yes. This was a budgeted project, and we have monies allocated to handle this work.
Okay. No further questions from me?
We have a motion and a second, any other questions? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's carried. All right. Everybody had a chance to review the minutes from the working session of March the 6th. If there's no changes or additions, we'll approve them by unanimous consent. Okay. Go down to ordinances. We have a second reading on B 2018-6 classification and compensation plan. Tim, I'll turn that over to you.
Yes, sir, Mayor. Summary of Ordinance B 2018-06, an ordinance amending and adopting as amended an ordinance styled an ordinance creating classification plan and compensation plan. This ordinance amends Ordinance B 2016-10, B 2016-15, B 2017-11, B 2017-14, B 2018-01, and Chapter 35, Employment Policies, the classification plan and compensation plan of the municipal code by amending the number of authorized positions, their title and pay grade, and setting the ranges and pay grades for city employees for fiscal year 2017-18 and subsequent years. The amendments and additions reflecting the number of positions, title, pay grade, respectively are Police Department, number of positions, strike 1, add 2. The title is Administrative Assistant / Property Room Technician part-time. Grade is 106. Strike completely 1. The title Crime Scene Technician part-time, and strike the grade 105. This ordinance or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith are repealed to the extent of such conflict. This ordinance shall remain in full force and effect following the publication of summaries required by law. Certified the summaries prepared by myself, Tim Butler, City Attorney.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Need a motion then to approve the change in the compensation and classification plan as read by Tim Butler. B 2018-06.
So moved.
Motion by Councilman Buckman, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Shekels. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Second.
Oh, excuse me, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
that's unusual.
Starting, all in favor, saying by aye, starting with Councilman Knowles.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. Okay, we have a safety committee meeting on the 8th. I don't know if you've got the minutes, you all can review those. Councilman Kelly, you got any comments? Or
Well, the minutes pretty well summarized what the meeting was about. We had Fire Chief Mattingly there, and he kind of gave a update on his first few weeks of being on the job, and that statements are summarized there in the attached minutes. We had Chief Kresick there that she and I had met, and we'd met before on body cams, but Council Member Copeland wanted to put it on the agenda, so we did, and it just a summary of that. And if I misstated, jump in there. But our previous cameras we had, they've examined them and talked to the vendor on them and other people, and apparently they're obsolete, even though they're 2015 cameras. They're not under warranty anymore. There's a problem with the batteries. There's a problem with them jumping back on the date when you charge them up. There's a problem, the software, I don't know if there's a problem with it, but the software does not allow the videos to be indexed other than by date and time, and it makes it difficult to sometimes locate something, especially when the date's jumping around on it. And the new cameras, newer type cameras will allow you to index, based on officer, victim, defendant, street. Is that pretty well correct? And what we would be looking at, we would store, the newer versions would store your videos online or through the cloud, and it would be a cost of around, of course we'd have to bid it out, but it looks like it'd be around $20,000 a year. But with that contract, we would also get the cameras. We wouldn't have to buy the cameras. We would get the initial cameras. Now the replacements and repairs that aren't under warranty, then that would be at our cost. So everybody's looking forward to move on it. I think one of the things we got to look at with the upcoming budget to see whether we can fit it in there or a year after that or whatever. That'll be with the pension money sitting out there and some other projects I think sitting out there, with waiting to see if there's any money for it.
Well, it was a consensus of the committee that, and the police department, body cam were an asset to the department, as far as, and the city for that matter. It's just a matter of putting the budgets together to make it work.
Nobody expressed any desire not to have it.
Did the committee discuss the open records component?
Yes. Well, I don't know if the committee discussed it. I know Chief and I discussed it because there is, with the indexing, it'll help a lot with open records, but it will take I don't know, we're guessing maybe a half of a full-time personnel to manage the data, because as the cases are resolved and videos are no longer needed to be stored, we want to erase them and get them off the cloud because we have to pay for the amount. Now of course, I was just pointed out by Randy Patrick that the bill was passed out today that addresses a little more specific about the open record requests that the General Assembly is looking at. And of course, we've had the certain exemptions under the open records about ongoing police investigations and so forth, but they put a lot more exemptions in there, like going into hospitals, that film wouldn't be available.
Right. Inside people's
dead
homes,
bodies and
children.
accidents and things like that, so that'll help give a little more direction on that. If it passes all the way, if it goes all the way through. So that would be another cost component of it, is the time it will take as far as personnel to administer this.
All right, Chief, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think that's a big another cost factor. It's not just the data storage of managing the data, and that's the biggest expense with the body cams, but it is the personnel that it's going to cost to manage the open records, because we don't want to take an officer off the street, which was what was happening in the past with the previous body cam program. Is they actually had an officer coming in off the street and managing that program. And so we don't want to utilize an officer off of the streets to do that. And so we would want a civilian that would be able to manage that. And it most likely is going to be a full-time position to do that, because when you start getting open records in for every traffic stop and every run for court preparation, and by the time you start redacting cases and getting those prepared, it is going to be very time-consuming to do that. And so when you start factoring in the cost for that and benefits, that will add in quite a bit of an expense So it's not just a $20,000 data storage. When you factor in that probably an additional 50 to plus benefits on there, then that takes that body cam program probably up more around $75,000 program for the body cams. And I think the biggest thing is you know, this is not just an overnight implementation of body cams. It's something that we really want to put some research into, and we are very committed to the body cam program. It is something that we want for the Bardstown Police Department, but we want to put some time and effort into the research of this program. And so because once it comes here, it's going to stay. And so it is something that's really important for our agency. It's going to be, it increases transparency, it increases protection for officers, it's better for their cases, it's better to build trust, but it's not something that we just want to haphazardly implement. We want to make sure we have the best product, we want to make sure we have the policies in place, we want officers trained on how to utilize it, we want to have the staff prepared on how to handle the open records, and we want to have a program that has a solid foundation once we implement that. So once it's here to stay, and it's an effective program for our community. And so we are doing research now, and we will start doing some test phases with different companies that will have officers wearing some videos. You may see officers having video cameras on them as they're on the streets, as we test phase different products, and as we try out these different programs. But it is going to be something that we're going to have to really look at to see the cost factors, and we want to be very financially responsible for our community and our taxpayers as we bring this to you all, to see how much it's going to cost, to see if and when we're going to be able to get it in our budget, because it is going to be expensive, and eventually I think it'll be something that we'll be able to bring to the community, but we want to make sure that we have everything in place before we're able to bring that forward.
Thank you, Chief. I know that she's had this on her planning radar for some time. It's not something she just started working on in the last couple of weeks. This has been ongoing. We had talks going back several months ago about this. So happy that you're all making progress on that. I agree with everything you and John have said, the committee's talking about. Thank you. Any other questions on the safety committee meeting? Okay, Chief, the next thing on our agenda is the Bluegrass Christian Academy's run walk, and I know we had tabled that for you all to have some discussion with them. Do you want to update us then on what you all have recommended?
Yes, so we have been in contact with the organizer, and all the recommendations that we have made, they have made those changes, and so we are good to go on our end, and we're good with that.
Okay, you want to maybe let us know what kind of changes you all recommended?
They're actually going to actually close down. So before, they were going to actually leave the roadway open, and so for safety concerns, they're actually going to close that, and so they're going to put up some signage to have where they can come in through the back way, so none of the businesses are going to be affected. But for safety reasons, the road's actually going to be closed for the runners and the participants, because it created a safety hazard for those participants in the run to actually be running with traffic flowing. And so when we worked with them to let them know that would be a traffic hazard for them to be running with traffic flowing, there was just not enough room for them to be running with traffic still going. They did make those changes. They're going to have 2 officers at the beginning and at the end, and then they're going to have signs so none of the traffic, so everyone knows exactly where to go. They're going to do some advertisement, and so they've agreed to all the changes that we added to that, and it has been great to work with.
So how would the Mexican restaurant there, I forgot the name of it, and the gym, how would they get access in? And was there right beside the
It
church?
won't be closed or beyond there.
It's gonna be closed beyond there. Okay.
Yes, and it's just, it's only going to be for in the morning. It's just going to be a couple hours early on, and then everything's going to be open up.
So there's really nothing along the stretch there between Flowers.
The back part of that parking lot really is
Right.
actually a little bit beyond those places, so that's where that would be their starting point. and put it there.
Okay.
And then flowers, they'll be able to come in the back way for flowers.
Okay, any other questions on this request to allow Bluegrass Christian Academy to have this event on April 21st? It says from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. If not, I would ask for a motion that we approve the request from the Christian Academy for this 5K run walk on April 21st with the changes recommended by the Bardstown Police Department.
So,
A motion by Councilman Shekels and a
Second.
second by Councilman Williams. Any other discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Motion's carried. Excuse me, all opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, the next one, we have a resolution number 2018-03. I'll let Jessica talk a little bit more to the administrative side of it, but a few months ago, Judge Watts and I drove to Frankfurt and met with Senator Higdon and Representative McCoy and transportation officials and talked about a number of projects, transportation projects in the state and so forth. And one of the things that both the judge and I had requested prior to that meeting, we had sent in some requests for some discretionary funding that's available for paving projects, and in our case, particularly those that are pertaining to economic development. And so we received notification that we were approved for some paving funding to repave Wilson Parkway in the Wilson Industrial Park. We had requested both Nutter Drive and Wilson, but we got Wilson, which was the larger of the two projects, and certainly grateful that with the help of Senator Higdon and Representative McCoy and Kentucky Transportation that we were awarded this funding. So Jessica, you might talk a little bit more to the amount and reasoning we have to enter into this formal agreement with the state to receive these funds.
Yes, they are, I guess, distributing these funds the best that I can understand through an agreement, what they call an LPA, which is we're the local public agency. So they helped draft this agreement that basically settles upon that amount. We had to submit a proposal and a package to the cabinet with Wilson Parkway and a dollar amount for the estimated resurfacing, and that dollar amount came in at $97,159. So that was a big plus for us because that's a huge chunk of our annual resurfacing budget taken up with just that one street. So this additional money and this agreement allows us to pave that street this year as we had planned, but we always have a list of needs greater than the funding for that year. So we will be able to use the monies that we still have budgeted to pave some other streets that have made the list, but we just had to, again, this was an industrial area that was in need. Chambers Boulevard was one of those streets that we almost really couldn't wait to hear back from the state on whether or not we got funds, so we went ahead and did that back this fall. So there's definitely some needs. This just goes through that process and allows us to meet the criteria and follow those protocol for administering those funds by the state.
Okay, Tim, do we need to go and read this first? And then
Don't need to read it, I can if you'd like.
I guess go ahead and read resolution number 2018-03.
Yes, it's a resolution adopting and approving the execution of a memorandum of agreement between the City of Bardstown and the Commonwealth of Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, Department of Highways for the amount of $97,159 for the resurfacing of Wilson Parkway, CS 1355. Whereas the City of Bardstown desires to resurface Wilson Parkway, CS 1355, and whereas the city intends to enter into a memorandum of agreement with the Commonwealth of Kentucky Transportation Cabinet for funding assistance, and whereas the city hereby determines that the resurfacing of Wilson Parkway is needed to enhance the safety and reliability of roadway connections for the commuting public, And whereas the city has asked the Commonwealth of Kentucky Transportation Cabinet Department of Highways for funding assistance for costs incurred during this project, now therefore be it resolved by the City of Bardstown City Council, County of Nelson, Commonwealth of Kentucky, that the Bardstown City Council does hereby ratify and adopt all statements, representations, warranties, covenants, and agreements contained in said memorandum of agreement, and does hereby accept the funds provided in said agreement, and by such acceptance agrees to all terms and conditions therein stated, and the mayor of the city of Bardstown is hereby authorized to directed to sign said agreement as set forth on behalf of the city council of Bardstown, and the city clerk of Bardstown is hereby authorized to and directed to certify thereto. Introduced, seconded, and adopted at the duly convened meeting of the City Council of the City of Bardstown, Kentucky, held on March 13th, 2018, signed by the mayor of the city and attested by the city clerk.
Great, thank you, Tim. Need a motion then to approve this resolution, to get this funding from the state.
So moved.
A motion by Councilman Kelly, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Doze. Any other discussion? As I say, I would like to reiterate what kind of Jessica said too, that this is, I think represents almost about 20% of our annual budget to get this done, and it allows us to spread that money throughout a lot of other needed streets. So if you see Representative McCoy or Senator Higdon out, tell them we appreciate their help. And I think the county got some funding for some of their projects as well out of this request. So just good working on the state and local level together to share in this need that the county and the city has. So we're grateful for that. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion carried. And then the next item is the resolution celebrating Women in Public Office Day. I think the month of March is kind of National Women's Leadership Month, I think.
Women's History.
Women's History?
Women's History.
Okay, thank you. And Councilman Copeland had asked us that we would consider formalizing this resolution. She couldn't be with us. She's out of town this evening, but I think we were all recognizing the importance of women in leadership roles, and it kind of ties into the project that Hannah Bowman has done on women in leadership here in Bardstown, which you've probably seen some of them, which did an excellent job. Got two of the participants in the room tonight that did a great job on camera and representing our city, so we appreciate your all's job on that project. So
Can we say that those videos are on the city's website and the city's Facebook page? So I think there's one more to come. If you haven't looked at them, they're excellent. Excellent profiles of some pretty amazing women.
You did a story on PLG the other night, I think, on it. With, I jokingly talked to Hannah. I said, Hannah, you've had a
Now she's featured.
a vignette on the producer.
We're also going to be showing those videos on PLG as well.
Good. When will that start?
Whenever Hannah sends them to me.
I think they all just got finished. I think the last one's had. So. Okay. Tim, would you like to read this resolution?
Sure, Mayor, I can do that. Resolution 2018-04, celebrating Women in Public Office Day, whereas the month of March is Women's History Month and celebrates the significant contributions women of all races, ethnicities, and backgrounds have made to the world, and whereas women play a critical role in the vitality and diversity of our communities and are essential to ensuring the city of Bardstown, Kentucky is well represented, and whereas while the 20th century was a pivotal time for growth for women entering politics, women remain underrepresented in male-dominated fields, and thus providing opportunities to support women in public office is imperative, and whereas recognizing women in public office will bring awareness to the fundamental necessity of their work and will inspire other young people to serve their communities. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City Council of Bardstown, Kentucky, do hereby proclaim March 19th to be the City of Bardstown Celebrating Women in Public Office Day, and call upon the people of Bardstown to unite as we support the success of women in public office and observe every March 19th with appropriate activities, events, and programs.
Okay. We get a motion then to approve Resolution 2018-04 as read.
Mayor, if I may, I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 2018-04, celebrating Women in Public Office Day, as read and set forth.
Thank you, Councilman Jones. We have a second. Councilman Buckman. Any other discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is approved. Any of the council members have anything to bring before the council this evening? Any other business?
In reference to Senate Bill 66, I think, where the KLC is definitely going along with the KRS, with the retirement system board. They're supporting the double weighting of the issues that go before the retirement system as it affects CRS, and they will vote to support that if they continue to do that. But there's another part that I was trying to find it on my phone today, but can't seem to pull it up.
Is that out of committee yet? Or not?
Yeah, it's getting ready to come out, and they've seen a rough draft of it, so I'll send an email out to everyone, because I'll be with them tomorrow, so. But it's 3 parts of it that they're going along with.
But you're saying the bill does ask for a double weighting of the KLC representatives on that
Yeah.
board. Yeah. So there's somebody.
For the issues involving KLC, like increasing contributions for the CRS, or CRS, CERS.
On the issues, on the votes that come before the board that affect the decisions, that affects the CERS itself.
I understand to be 12 votes in the CRS, if they got the double votes, it would have at least half the votes on them.
Because right now there's 17 members on the board, and only 6 of them are representative of CERS. So in matters that concern CERS, and the vote comes about that, they wanted those issues to be double weighted.
Yeah.
So they basically have 12 votes, and the rest have 12 votes too, so we could, and if it came a tie, which it very possibly could, then they'd have to go back and have further discussion on those issues. So it should be interesting to see how it unfolds.
Okay, anything else? We have one cemetery deed to Siobhan Mattingly for one grave. We do that by unanimous consent. Does anyone have any announcements? Greg, we got anything coming up we forgot to talk about?
Motion, I'd like to think of.
Mary?
Not that I can do.
Okay, then we will, I need a motion then to go into executive session pursuant to KRS 61.8101B, deliberations on the future acquisition or sale of real property by a public agency when publicity would be likely to affect the value of the property. I need a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Councilman Williams. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Shekels. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Turn into executive sessions. Come out of executive session and go back into regular session.
So moved, and reflect that we didn't take any action during the closed session.
Motion by Councilman Kelly and second by Councilman Buckman. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. And I'll repeat what Councilman Kelly mentioned in his motion, that we took no official action during the executive session, and we won't be asking for any motions this evening as a result of the executive session. We're still in deliberations at this point with some possibility of trying to acquire some property for public use. So I don't think there's anything else to bring before the council, so I have a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Motion by Councilman Checker, do we have a second?
Second?
Second by Councilman Williams. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, we are adjourned.